Thank you so much, Narelle. Hi, everybody. It was funny how the volume got louder when everyone was asked how the food was. That's how it is in my house, too. How's your day? All right. How's dinner? Great. So I just wanted to give a brief background on how Narelle and I met, because I think it's important to the topic that we're discussing today. We met about 3 years ago because we play in some tennis leagues together. I am not a squash player, and I'm not nearly as good at tennis as Narelle is, but we have found so much in common, whether it be because we have children that are around the same age, or because we love competition, and what brought us together but a sport, right? Even though we're not young anymore, we still enjoy competition and athletics and fitness. And I'm so grateful, because if it wasn't for tennis, I would have probably never met Narelle. So I just wanted to give you a brief background on how long this lasts and why your commitment to sports and athletics should be a lifelong journey. So thank you for having me. We have an amazing panel, and I'm just going to introduce everyone very quickly, because my job today is really just to highlight all the wonderful women here, and hopefully I can ask them some questions that may be on your minds, and we can all learn from them. So I am going to start, I'm going to skip over you, Mom, for a second. I'm going to start with Olivia Blatchford-Clyne. She has a lot of accomplishments, including winning the British Junior Open Girls Under 15 event in 2007. Olivia competed in the 2015 Pan American Games in Toronto, Canada, representing the USA, and she brought back, guess what? A silver medal from the individual event and a gold from the team's event. I'm so honored to be standing next to you. Gosh. She also reached a career high world ranking of number 11 in October 2021. She won the U.S. National Championship twice in 2017 and 2019. You have a long resume, Missy. Okay. There is more that you can look up, but we have a lot to get to. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, because you had a wonderful career, and I'm sure you're tired, but she announced her retirement from the PSA Tour this January. Well, congratulations on your retirement. And thanks for being here. And next to her is Mom, right?
My mom.
That's her mom. My daughter's up here too. I won't point at her and embarrass her. Elizabeth Elfenbein. And I know you're probably very proud to be sitting next to your daughter with this whole list of accomplishments, right? Okay. I am going to take this from your website because I did a little research on you. That's my job. And I know that you are not only Olivia's mom, but you're an innovator who lives to make an impact in our world with a strong focus on serving women and the aging population, and you are dedicated to developing ideas, experiences, and building companies that make a social impact. Bravo. And if you could look at her shirt, she is also the founder of Under the Sisterhood, which is a social impact company that sees, hears, and celebrates all women's voices and perspectives. And that's really important, right? Because we need to celebrate each other and lift each other up. Kataya Henderson, I just told her that one day I really hope that I can say that I sat next to an Oscar winner. She goes to Simon Gratz High School. That's right. Okay. She's a cheerleader, and her hobbies are acting and modeling. And I know you probably have a lot to say that can relate to some of the ages in this audience, right? Okay, awesome. And I also want to introduce Coach V. She is the founder of ODAAP, Open Door Abuse Awareness Prevention. This is an incredible organization that helps prevent domestic violence and sexual violence and assault through love, which I think is what a mission statement, right? She is the best kind of coach, in my opinion, working on the emotional knowledge, self-awareness, and moral character of athletes on and off the field. I'm going to have you explain a little more about what you do as we get into the panel, because I think your story is super inspiring. And I will say that Coach V took a pretty extreme tragedy in her life and made sure that others benefited from what she learned. And we should all be so lucky to have people like you in this world. So thank you. I am going to start with just the general question. I can pass the mic back and forth. Oh, you have a mic too. Okay, great. Cheers.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, why don't you talk a little bit about sports and the relationship with Olivia and maybe how that fostered your relationship and what it means to have a parent who is a great support for you during your athletic career. Yeah, sure. You can start.
Oh, okay. Sport, I was a daughter I had two brothers and a father, and my parents were divorced. And so sport was our weekend thing. I saw my dad on Saturdays and Sundays. By the way, I didn't know this question was coming this way. So this is extemporaneous. We would see our father on Saturday and Sunday. And when you have two brothers, you play baseball, you play football. I was in Little League at age 8. I thought I lost my mom's ruby earrings. I had the whole team on the field looking for the earrings. But anyway, sport was a big part of my life from a very young age. And I didn't necessarily like it or dislike it, I just went along with it. And it wasn't until my father introduced us to cycling that I was like, this is kind of cool. We played squash on the weekends. My dad was a squash player, but it was all about his sport, not our sport. And so I really ended up taking to cycling. And just a quick aside, I went off to art school, which is very contrary to say a lot of the roads that everybody will take here. So sport for an artist is really kind of odd. But I got into cycling and I started having successes with it, and that really sort of laid a foundation and structure in my life and the discipline that really helped my entire life. So age 18, 19 I started bike racing, I went on to race till I was 23, then switched to competitive squash. And it was life-changing for me. It was life-changing because, having divorced parents, I didn't have a lot of structure in my life. This gave me structure, gave me discipline, and it has been something that I was able to take forward in my life in so many positive ways. 10 years later, at age 30, I am fortunate to have my first child, Olivia, and I met her father playing squash, and it was something that we did together as a family. And I think the thing about it as it relates to having children with sport is, we got them into sport because we felt it was something we could do as a family. On the weekends, I was a working mom, so we played sport on the weekends, and then the kids started liking it. And we felt it was also not just a way to keep us all together, but fitness, activity, really getting our endorphins up. It was a way to help build our daughters' self-esteem, their confidence, and give them discipline and structure. And so that was sort of my origin. And then, Olivia takes off at age 7. She starts getting super competitive and really, really good, very, very fit at a young age. And her career the trajectory is kind of like this, and there was no turning back. And so as a mother of a daughter, all of you guys, a daughter, just watching her and just giving her that runway and supporting her from the sidelines was really essential. At the same time, I think, as a mother, you want to be this role model. And so I think that, my job for the past, so I guess it's 7, she started really competing. And, we have 3 children, so, I wasn't able to attend all of the tournaments as she was going because we had 3 children, but really be on the sidelines and make sure Olivia felt supported, make sure that we did everything to help her have the runway to love the sport, enjoy the sport, and be as successful as she wanted to be in the sport. I want to say something really important, and then I'll hand it over to Olivia. For me, it isn't about winning. Getting on the court and playing every day, that is winning. Doing your sprints, doing your drop shots, practicing, going out and doing the fitness work, going out for long walks, that is winning. Winning isn't about winning the match, it's about winning in life, and that's about how you show up on the court. And so I feel as a mother, it was my job to let my daughters and my son, but really my daughters know that you weren't defined by whether you won or lost, you were defined by the fact that you showed up and you did your best as a human being. And so I'm going to hand it over to Olivia.
Olivia, do you mind if I just ask one before you get started? Because I thought you brought up so many good points, Elizabeth. Well, it's for Olivia, but when your mom mentions, she wanted you and your siblings to feel supported, and at this day and age, you guys are growing up in a really complicated world, right? There's a lot going on in the world. You have to deal with social media and a lot of pressures, peer pressure, a lot of pressure about what school should I attend? What should I do when I grow up? You know, what friends should I listen to? What friends should I sort of steer away from? How did sports sort of, I don't want to say keep you on track, but really give you the confidence that you needed to be able to pave a path for yourself?
Yeah, I think, I mean, like my mom said, I was introduced to sport so young. I mean, I was saying to Stephanie earlier, I was the kid who was like in a stroller behind the squash court when I was just born. So I was very much exposed from a very young age. And I think when we talk about support, there's also a sense of developing your own qualities, your own internal strength support as well, where sport gives you the ability, to me it was always one big metaphor, right? You have to learn how to be resilient, you got to take those ups with the downs. Some days you're going to win, some days you're going to lose. You're going to have a great practice, you're going to have a terrible practice. Some days you're going to want to show up, some days you're not going to want to show up. And are you able to kind of take those in your stride and grow from that? And I think, you know, confidence comes from, I believe, knowing who you are and being proud of that person. And I think that there's no better way to put yourself in a position where you're going to feel those pressures. And, you know, I always like to think pressure makes diamonds, right? Like carbon, right? Pressure makes diamonds. And letting ourselves be under that pressure and finding a way to survive and ultimately thrive gives you such a confidence going into the rest of your life. Because at the end of the day, it's a game, right? I go on there and it's a game. I want to win as much as I can, but it is just a game at the end of the day. And life is life, right? It's a little bit of a different circumstance. We're trying to find our feet and find ways to, again, survive and thrive very similarly. But I do believe that knowing who you are, knowing that you have the ability to be tough and to thrive in hard situations, I think it gives you confidence throughout every aspect of your life. And I definitely know that my mom really made that clear, was like, hey, this is not just about this game. This is about you as a human being and as a person for the rest of your life, right? We're talking about forever, not right just for now, right? It's a forever thing, so.
Yeah, and it's really the tools, I think, that you gain as you go through that journey, and the tools that your support system gives you to deal with adversity, to deal with winning graciously and losing graciously. And those are all parts of the pieces of your personality that you're going to need to take with you as you grow up. Do you find that when you're talking about cheerleading is super competitive, I know that, but if you could tell me a little bit about your experience and some of what you've learned through using that as a support system.
I started cheerleading when I was in like 5th grade, I want to say, and honestly, I just started cheering because I wanted to lose weight. I just wanted to be more active. I had just hit puberty, so it was like, I was all over the place, and I was just like, oh, well, let me get into something that'll keep me fit, keep me in shape, and still keep me happy. Through cheerleading, it was more so just like a self-supported thing, like learning a new skill always motivated me to keep going, keep trying something new, learning a different position, trying a new flip or something like that. It was just self-paced, really.
Great. Yeah, and I think you look amazing, and it's so nice that when we can think about each other and really focus on being fit and strong, and using athletics to be able to achieve that goal, because there is far too much focus, at least I think, on looking a certain way, but I think it's really about how you feel inside. And I think strong women are the best kind of women. So, Coach V, I just want to ask you to give a brief sort of rundown of why you're here, your organization, and why, when I was doing my research on Coach V, because my job to do a lot of research, I'm not stalking you. What I was so impressed with is you're using the skills and the lessons and the hardships that you had in life to make sure that people who may seem like the adversary, or you grew up thinking the enemy, are actually, you're helping them grow as human beings. So if you could talk a little bit about your experience and what you try to do as a coach on the field.
So how many of you guys right now play a sport? Raise your hand. Okay. Let me ask you, who plays flag football here? Anybody? Oh, raise your hand high if you're playing flag football. Let's go, good job. So, let me say this, that I'm a football coach. I coach football, high school football, a lot of guys, okay? But I started coaching football probably in 2014, and I was coaching it for a good little while, and I was at Penwood High School, and the girls in the high school started following me around saying, Coach V, why are you doing all this stuff for the boys? You ain't doing them for us. So they guilted me into a girls group. Well, I should say they guilted me. After a while, I kept saying I was going to get to it, but I was focusing on the guys so much. And then these girls were relentless. What does that say about us, right? We relentless, all right? Girls, they run the world. So I started this group for girls called I See You. Now, what do you think that means? Anybody? Go, beloved, what? Very good. It means I see you. Good job. It means I see you. It's the acronym, however, for intentionally caring and united. And when I greet my girls, I never say hello. What do you think I say to them?
I see you.
And so I'm going to greet you. I see you. And you greet me back. Let's try it. I see you.
I see you.
Oh, a little more than that. I see you.
I see you.
Very good. Because guess what? We want to be seen and we want to be heard for who we really are. So my girls group, I See You, is based on Maya Angelou's quote that says, you teach people how to treat you. You teach people how to treat you. If you don't know your value, then you'll stand for any old thing. But if you know your value, your stand is going to be up here, right? Now, I'm going to tie it all back together. So the reason why I was using football as a medium, I'm a violence preventionist, right? And oh, by the way, does anybody know what this month is for? Anybody know? Yes.
Sexual awareness month.
Say it again, beloved.
Sexual harassment awareness.
Okay, it's Sexual Assault Awareness Month, you all. And this is the color for it. And this is one of the reasons why my girls wear these shirts. Sexual assault prevention. Now I'm going to say something. And when I say it, it's going to be hard to hear, but I want you to hear me. And there's a story behind it, okay? So I see you.
I see you.
You see me? I see you. When I was a very little girl, and this is going to be hard for some of you all to hear, so moms, if you're here and everything, love on your girls, but I want to tell you this, there's a story behind this. When I was a very little girl, I lost my mom to domestic violence. And my dad was the one who took her life. And one of the things that I was looking for was the opportunity to get in front of that kind of violence. Because you see, I don't think my dad woke up that morning and say, I'm going to harm my wife today. He didn't wake up with that in his mind. There was all kinds of things that happened in his life that somebody, if they had had the opportunity to speak into his life, probably could have prevented that. So I started working with football guys, high school football guys, helping them to understand how to treat you, how to speak to you, right? How to react to you when they see you instead of calling you out your name, catcalling at you, because you deserve that. So I started working with football players to teach them how to treat you. Honestly, that's why I started ODAP, to teach them how to treat you. And I work with a lot of guys, y'all. I work with a lot of football teams in the city of Philadelphia, MLTAP, MLK, George Washington, a whole bunch of things. I know I'm taking a lot of time, but I'm sorry. I want you guys to understand this. The way I support in sports is that I help my young men learn how to treat you. And therefore I'm going to say to you, just like Maya Angelou said, you teach people how to treat you. Where are your boundaries? Where's your no-go? Like you're not speaking to me any old kind of way, right? I love and respect myself enough to say no to you. So there's a lot behind what I do. I sit here, I'm a football coach, but I'm doing a lot more than that. And so I want to say, I see you. Oh, a lot more than that. I see you. I see you. And I see you too. okay?
Can I ask you one follow-up? Please have one follow-up. I did watch your TED Talk.
Yeah.
Can you just relate that story to the girls about a football player who you worked with? Do you remember that story?
Oh, yeah, Temple?
Yes.
One of my football players that I was working with, you know, he was coming down the street one day and I said, come on, let's go to Temple. Temple want to know what we're doing. So I picked him up and we went down to Temple University. And as I was sitting there, I was thinking to myself, they wanted to know the work that I was doing, right? And I thought to myself, if this player can't say what I'm doing nothing. So what I did was, I was like, man, you want to go up there and tell them what we're doing? He was like, yeah, sure. And he got up there. Now, I didn't know what he was going to say, y'all. Like, this wasn't planned at all. I figured if he went up there and said something crazy, I could go and fix it, right? Well, he went up there and he said, I'm really proud of what I'm learning with Coach B. Because, and then he got quiet, y'all, and he said, things haven't been going so good in my house. Now, I didn't know this at the time. But he said, things haven't been going so well in my house. My dad hasn't been treating my mom right. And he said, now I'm teaching my dad how to treat my mom. And this was because of the work that we had done. Because here's the deal about this. Sometimes when you're in a household and you see certain things, you think it's normal. Until somebody comes along and goes, no, that's not normal. And then you get to see differently. Oh, that shouldn't be happening. You shouldn't be calling me out by saying my name. You shouldn't be yelling and screaming at me, and you definitely shouldn't be putting your hands on me. But sometimes we get used to kind of being treated a certain way that's not good, you know? So, yeah, that's one story. I see you. I see you. Oh, that was good. Snap, snap, snap.
I'm going to hand this back. So this question you can all answer, but sort of based on what Coach V said. Obviously, we know how important it is for all of us women to support women, right? For girls to support girls. Check the cattiness at the door. We don't have to compare ourselves to other girls or other women. We need to be confident in ourselves and our own personal path, right? To whatever goals we have in mind. But you mentioned that you work with a lot of boys in the football field to try to teach them the right way to treat women. Also recently, women's sports have had sort of a big moment, right? And so what does it mean not only as athletes and as mother of athletes and as a coach to have a woman athlete be supported by a huge male audience? Because they should. We're just as capable, right? We're just as capable, just as athletic. I would say more athletic in the case of Caitlin Clark. But can you talk about, just what that means to finally have an audience and someone, a large amount of people, men or women, saying, I see you?
Totally. I was very lucky. I married a fellow athlete who was also a squash player, and I think he'd be okay with me saying this. I tended to win a little bit more than he did for a while there. So I always felt that there was a mutual respect there, but that wasn't always necessarily felt in the big wide world, really, right? We're kind of bombarded by these images of guys, right? Even when you look at the advertisements for, your Gatorades and your Nikes and all these types of organizations, they're looking to kind of play on this big, strong men kind of vibe. And I think it's honestly so wonderful to see, women's sport is only really just starting. I read this fantastic book and it was talking about how even the sports science has not, it's always been built on men. All the facts that people try and teach us to, this is what you need to do to get stronger and better, is all based on men. I'm like, what are you talking about? I dedicated my life to this. This is, you know this much in the history and the scope of things. We're only just cracking the surface of what it even means to be a female athlete. And in that sense, we're also just cracking the surface of what it means to really celebrate our female athletes and putting what it means to be a strong woman on, really on a platform, giving them a voice. Obviously, there's been many teams of women who've started to step forward and make their opinions heard, fought for, at the very least, prize money parity, which we've been lucky to have at U.S. Squash, but we've had very significant, amazing athletes representing, world Cup champions and our soccer players who got paid less than our men for a really long time. I think our men were lucky to make the round of 16, and our women were winning that whole dang thing. So I've also been very lucky to be a part of the U.S. Squash women's team that again, we've always been a little bit, slightly a little bit more than a little bit stronger than our guys team, but I think it's wonderful. I think that Caitlin Clark game was actually the most watched college match of all time, right? Did anyone else tune in for that, to see Caitlin Clark and the showdown? I mean, it was insane, so cool, and I think it really is, we're just cracking the surface, but an athlete is an athlete. Everyone's doing amazing things. When you tune into the Olympics this summer, you're gonna see men doing crazy things, you're gonna see women doing crazy, crazy things, achieving amazing feats of athleticism, of camaraderie, of teamwork. You're gonna see incredible things, and I think we're almost to a point now where we're seeing people as athletes as opposed to this idea, and don't get me wrong, I think it's really fun to be able to be like, hey, like, you know, I squat more than all the guys in the gym or something like that, which is a truth, but I think even more so it's being seen. When we talk about being seen is, hey, I'm an athlete just as much as anyone else. You're an athlete just as much as anyone else here. You're an athlete just as much as anyone else here. That there's this acknowledgement that we kind of are all one, right? You guys all got on court today. You guys all we're moving your bodies. You're athletes, right? And you guys get to be seen like that, and hopefully society will continue to push forward those boundaries so that you continue to be seen as the strong, awesome women that you guys are. So.
Elizabeth, and you can say what you were going to say, but just keep this in mind too. Growing up with brothers, why did you think it was so important for you to be there for your daughter as she went through her athletic journey, and how did that differ from the way you were raised too?
Yeah, well, I think that for me, I played sport. It was because of my father. It wasn't really by choice. I think that with my daughter and daughters, Olivia's sister Georgia played college squash. But I think the thing for us is really about letting them. I always felt it was important. I love I See You, because you know our platform's about seeing, hearing, and celebrating. And I felt that regardless of what the girls were doing, what stage Olivia was on, it was critical that she felt seen, heard, and celebrated at every stage. And her father and I did that throughout her entire life. That's been really important to us. But I think back to the other point, which Olivia was answering, is finally sport has this platform for women. I mean, I know growing up, and I'm sure Coach Van probably maybe a little older than you, but Title IX is a big thing, which meant that girls suddenly, they were giving sports teams in universities and stuff, they were inviting teams for women, and they were taking them away from men, and it was a big thing. And I used to have people say to me, well, Title IX is what got you into sport, or what have you, and that wasn't really the truth. I played sport because I liked sport. I raced a bike because I liked racing a bike. And so I think, you know, today the difference is that we're no longer, well, we are competing for voice, to be seen, to be heard, and celebrated, but it seems like there is a platform that is welcoming that and encouraging that. And I think that everything from, you know, everything that's going on with women in general, everything from sport to everything in society, to health, to, you know, all genders, things gender related, has really grown, and I think women are really powerful right now. I think Olivia said it well. I mean, it's early stages, it's going to continue to grow, and you guys are going to be the women who are going to really take this to the next level. And so whether you decide to be on a world stage, a local stage, you use that opportunity to be seen, heard, and have your sport and self celebrated. And I think that's the other thing, is that women athletes are getting the stage to be celebrated as athletes. But what's really interesting about the world we live in today, it's not without getting to know the human side of them. It's not without getting to know that, say, for instance, Naomi has had mental health issues, had to pull out of a tournament, or an Olympic athlete had to. And I think it's really important to say, hey, I love this sport, I want to do all these things, I want to compete, but to also recognize in the process there's going to be human side of you. And that, I think, is what's really interesting about today's platform for women being celebrated. They're also being celebrated as humans.
Can I add on to that really quick? I think when we talk about it, this is really hard, right? We're constantly kind of being judged in general, right? That just society in general likes to judge. Do you look a certain way? Do you act a certain way? are you perceived a certain way by your classmates, by your peers, right? What's that girl thinking about you? Ooh, is that person looking at me a little bit weird? There's always this kind of this feeling of you're always on your guard a little bit. I think with what I felt always from my mom was this idea of like, hey, you're good. Like you're okay. You can determine what your, like you said, what your value and what your worth is. You can determine that. And it is hard. Like sport has this idea of you have to look a certain way, you have to act a certain way. And I just think that part of the boundaries that we're starting to break down, and where my mom was so supportive, was like, hey, you are your own person. You're gonna look a certain way because that's you. You're Olivia, and Olivia moves a certain way and she learns a certain way. And I just want to encourage you guys to own yourselves, right? Like be yourself, learn who you are, what makes you excited, how you want to learn, what type of person you want to be, and ignore the other junk that's out there, because there is a lot of junk that you're going to have to sift through as you guys get older.
Kataya, do you have anything to add about that? Because like, what's so interesting is I know you said you didn't get into gymnastics because you said, I want to go be an athlete. It was sort of for other reasons, but what have you gotten out of it? Because it doesn't really matter how you go in, right? It's what you get out of it. So can you talk a little bit about that?
My relationship with cheer, with sports, it's been a little rocky. I've always felt like, like cheer is depicted to be a sport for girls. Like if you're a girl, you're supposed to be a cheerleader, you're supposed to be on the sidelines, rooting for the football team, basketball team and stuff. But it was always like, what if I want to be on that other side of the court? Like I don't want to be the cheerleader all the time. I want to be the one who's getting acknowledged for doing other things. But I do love cheer because the competitive side is like, it takes a lot of determination and a lot of strength. Like, I think that's the best part. Nobody really understands how extensive cheerleading is until you get into that competition mode, until you get into that competitive state. So yeah.
That's great, yes. Because I think people are watching you too, right? Like you're not just there to cheer, people are cheering on you as you cheer.
Yeah.
And it is an incredibly difficult sport physically. I just want to ask a question, and I'm going to raise my hand, because have any of you girls ever felt at any point in time, I don't feel really good about myself, I feel a little alone, like I'm isolated, and I have that like kind of icky feeling inside. Has anybody ever felt that? Yeah, it's normal, right? Everybody feels that. And I think going back to, being human beings in sport, it's also okay to be vulnerable and to ask for help, because you ask for help on the field, on the court, on the squash court, but, and it's okay to ask for help in real life too. And I think having that support system through athletics allows you that sort of foundation, right? So Coach V, I just want to ask you too, from your perspective, when women talk in the real world, right? Like let's put athletics aside. One of the things my youngest son always says to me, he's 11, is he says, Mom, stop saying you're sorry, right? Like he'll be like, do we have muffins for breakfast? And like, oh no, I'm so sorry. He said, you don't have to say sorry all the time. But I think as women, we're a little trained to apologize for everything. And in one sense, we're asked to be kind, to be inclusive, and sort of subdued. And we need to sort of put that aside with athletics and have that instinct where we go out and are competitive and are there for each other. Do you feel like that's a hard dynamic for young girls to understand? Because it seems, is it different for boys? Just talk about your experience with boys and girls in that sense.
I think that girls in general, when it comes to sports, you need to understand you're just as capable as anybody else to do your sport, whatever you want to do. Girls sometimes come into sport a little less confident, and if I would say anything, I want you to believe in yourself enough to give it your all. But I say the same thing to my guys too. Give it your all. Whatever you're going to do, just give it your all. You'll have to win, you'll do, just give it your all. And I think just in general, like everybody's saying, sports and women, there's a lot of great things going on. Did you all know that young girls in particular drop out of sports pretty early on? Did y'all know that? Yeah, you knew that? Why do you think that's so? Anybody want to say? Yes, beloved. Say again, what's she saying?
Most sports are male dominated.
Okay, she said that most sports are male dominated. Does anybody else have an opinion about that? Why do girls stop playing sports early on? Yes, beloved.
They don't feel included.
They don't feel included. Okay, anybody else? Yes, beloved.
Men think men think that the women are inferior to them in sports.
Okay, because men think women are inferior to them. Okay. But you all are seeing examples of women stepping up and owning that space, right? Let's just clarify that. You know, it may be a male-dominated sport today, but doesn't mean it's going to be one tomorrow. And that's up to us to change, you know, that whole narrative about sports. But I will say this too, speaking of being supportive, sometimes, and this may be a little bit off the subject, but sometimes girls don't stay in sports because they don't feel supported by their coaches. Because some of us don't have the mom and dad to be on the field with us. We're looking for other places to be supported. And so one of the things that I know that we're trying to do is make sure you feel supported by your coaches. Because sometimes you don't have, this was a blessed situation here for mom to be there and support Olivia, but in real life, it don't always work out like that. So the only thing I'm going to say about that is this. The truth is, when it comes to sports, I would encourage all of you to do what you want to do with it. Don't be thinking about the other person who might be better than you. Have fun and do what you want to do. That's all I'm going to say about that. And I see you.
I see you. Elizabeth, can I just hold that? I know did you have a question?
I actually just interviewed two different women, one 12 and one 13. The 12-year-old is new to volleyball and a superstar in Atlanta around puberty, around getting her period. And I just want to say and address this. It's really important. And she talked about the young woman in Atlanta who just got into volleyball, and she's apparently whatever the mid one is. She's a great jumper, she's fantastic, but she is so afraid. She has a male coach, and she won't talk to her male coach when she gets her period. She's in pain, she doesn't perform as well because she's not just embarrassed, he makes fun of them. And so he ends up yelling at her. She doesn't show up like as her best self, and it's a cycle. She still loves the game. The other young woman, Sachita, in New Jersey, was a 13-year-old. She was a state-level trampoline gymnast, just retired as a medalist in the States, and just retired from the sport because of puberty, because of getting her period, because of all the things and the changes going on in her life. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that, but to say, I mean, you can do it. I mean, it's going to be hard, but it's going to be hard anyway. So if you want to do it, you can do it. And a lot of comments with the different physicians, I've been speaking with pediatric and adolescent gynecologists who talk about, just encouraging and keeping things going, because the movement and the activity is really supportive of all aspects of your health and your well-being. But I wanted to address something else, building on what Coach V said, which was really, you can do whatever you want in sport. But the one thing I want to encourage is, of course you can, and it's available to you. And you might not have the support at home. I didn't have anyone going to my bike races. I met a team of the guys I trained with. I hopped a ride from Brooklyn. I lived in Brooklyn, New York. I sat guy Tony, who took me out to all of my races. And I have my little support group. What I would encourage all of you today is to create, so that was what, 30 years, more than 30 years ago, over 35 years ago. What I would encourage you today is to be each other's support. And I think that has been, under the Sisterhood, we are trying to build this global community where women's health and well-being are strengthened through sisterhood. And so you don't realize, each and every one of you, regardless if you're 9 years old, if you're 15, you're 17, you're 20, you're 30, you're 60, you're 40, I mean, it doesn't matter where you are in life, you have a social responsibility to each other, to support each other. In sport, around that lunch table, when you are experiencing that period, and whether you talk about flowers or however you choose to talk about it, being there for each other. I will tell you, I did not have that, and that's why I built this company. You know, we need to create a world where women recognize that you're not fighting for that one seat at the table. The table is big enough for all of us.
That's wonderfully said. You know, I think that all of you, I know we're running short on time, but this panel is so wonderful, and they're here. I want them to answer your questions too, because I think that there's probably things that you girls all go through, and maybe taking this as an opportunity, as a safe space, just to ask sort of the experts if you have anything that you just are worried about, concerned about, or need a resource for help. Does anybody have any questions? And I can come to you with a microphone. Anyone? And this is Angela. Hi.
Okay, so I've been reading a lot about just how ingrained, I guess, it is in ourselves to make ourselves small, and that comes out on court sometimes. I'm afraid to get aggressive, or I don't know, I can't put myself 100% because I'm afraid of how I will be perceived just by anyone, just by other women or men. How do I get past that?
By the way, this is the question I was trying to ask before, but she articulated it much better. So thank you so much, Angela. But so if anyone wants to take that one.
That is a fantastic question. And as someone who is already 5 feet tall, I understand it very well what it means to be small and then have to feel like you have to make yourself smaller. It kind of goes with that whole thing of constantly fitting ourselves into boxes for other people so that they're happy. And I think it goes back to kind of two things. One thing is that we can control very little in this world outside of ourselves, right? When you go out there on court, the perceptions of other people are not within your control. And I always felt like when I stepped on court and when I closed that door, and I did, sometimes I had to make it very literal. I'd shut the door, and I'd shut the door on the outside, the people watching, sometimes even the voices in my head that wanted to have that negative talk, that wanted to say, that's not good enough, no, you're not good enough, no. I think women in general get embarrassed a lot quicker than guys do. I think we have this inherent oh wait, don't look at me, oh, they're looking at me the wrong way, all of these things, what are they thinking? And we have such little control over that. But what we do have control over is stepping onto that court and saying, this is for me. I think we give away sometimes our power by allowing those voices to seep in. Even giving powers to the voices in our head that says that we're not enough, that we don't deserve something, or we need to be a certain way for other people. And I would encourage you as much as you can to throw your shoulders back and be like, no, this is for me. This is for no one else. I don't need to be anyone but myself. And when you go out there, and if you gotta go and give someone a butt kicking, you give them the butt kicking. I'm sorry, that's sport, all right? But you own it, because you deserve that. You deserve to go out there and own it. Take your space.
So are you saying also, if something happened before the game that bothers you, how do you get mentally back into that competition?
You know why I want to answer that question? Because I do a lot with my boys with this one. One of the things I talk to my boys about is how to transition from a red brain to a blue brain, okay? Now, the red brain, I'm just going to tell you how I tell my boys, is usually in the back part of your brain where all your feelings and emotions are, right here, right? And then your blue brain, we're going to say, is where your cortex is, where you do all your critical thinking, where you get, I call an audible if you need to on the field. So, this is what I'm going to say to you, reps, practice makes perfect, right? This is what I put in my boys' playbook. You got to, when you're not in a high, stressful situation, I want you to put stuff in your playbook right now that will be an automatic knee-jerk reaction when you're starting to feel stress. Those kind of things, you want to work on them before you get in a stressful situation. So some of the things I tell my guys, we do breathing exercises, right? We do little things all the time. And we say, the next time you're on the line and you're about to go for a play and somebody calls you a name, and all you want to do is jump up and deck them, I want you to think, okay, this is my red brain, I need to get in the blue. And all those things that you practice, you got to put in practice at that time, you know what I'm saying? Whether it's, okay, breathing, right? But these are things that make practice. Does that make sense to you? That's how I talk to my boys, and they get it, so I figure you get it too, right?
That's a great answer. By the way, I have to say, and we have to wrap it up, but that applies to everything in life. Like before you go into a meeting, if you have a job, before you go into an interview, before you meet a new person, before you go on a date, whatever it may be, you have to put whatever's going on outside that situation, put it aside and focus on what you're doing. I can't let you go without asking you a question. If you raise your hand, it has to be quick.
I used to play soccer when I was younger, and I quit after like 2 weeks because it was mainly boys on the team, and I felt like they always told me like I couldn't do stuff right because everyone was watching me because I couldn't compete well with the other boys. And like, I don't know, like how do you get over people constantly watching you while you're trying to do everything correct?
Wow. And maybe criticizing too? That's a great question. Does anybody want to answer that?
Why don't you answer that?
One thing I noticed about boys in sports, they will project their insecurities on women. Like, boys have such a hard time progressing in the sport that they're in because they're going to project whatever they're failing at on someone else. So the way I got over that was just, perfecting my craft. Like, I know what I'm struggling with, so being able to overcome that myself without a boy's opinion, a boy's help, just being able to focus on what I struggle with, I mean, that really helped me the most, because boys, they're not progressing more than we are.
That's so good. That's so good.
Do you still love soccer?
Questions after?
Keep playing.
I'm not
Keep
a
playing.
player. You have to play. You love it. You deserve to play because you love it. It's that simple. There's no other rules besides that. If you love it, you go and play it out.
And people are always going to be watching us. And by the way, it's not just boys projecting their insecurities. If someone treats you negatively, it's usually because they feel badly about themselves. So if somebody isn't congratulating you because you made a team, or giving you a high five because you had a goal, or you won a championship, it's usually because they feel like, I wanted to do that, and why should she have it? So make sure that you understand that when you accomplish something and you maybe don't get the accolades or the high fives that you want, it has more to do with the other person and less to do with the amazing accomplishment that you just had.